Okay, once again, hello everyone, and thank you for coming to our workshop today. Today, the topic is the art of the active move. What does it mean and what we should be doing here? So, mainly your task will be to realize which of your pieces requires improvement and how to bring these pieces to the place of action at the same time trying to get initiative, trying to attack something, trying to provoke your opponent to defend the position. Oh, this is not the first game we're gonna start with. This is the one we covered last workshop. But what you should know? Well, strong chess players, especially when they don't know what to do in the position, and yes, such situations may happen. Don't believe people who say, well, in every position, I know what my plans are. No, they don't know their plans. They just have more experience. And they have some patterns. They remember some patterns. And that's why they know that in this type of the positions, probably they should be looking at this or that direction. And most likely it works. But no, not always. Sometimes they don't understand what they should be doing in the position and they have to calculate and they have to think strategically. And if you don't know what to do, think about your worst piece and try to improve it. So how to realize which is your worst piece? Usually you can do it intuitively, but usually you can also recognize your passive piece by trying to evaluate the activity of this piece, how this piece what does this piece do for this concrete position? Does it restrict enemy capabilities? Does it make your position stronger? If yes, because of what? If this piece is not really doing much, then it's a bad piece and you should improve it. Also, how you should improve a piece. If you see that, yes, this piece is bad, but you cannot improve it right now, okay, forget about it for now, and instead take your other piece, which you think is not well placed too. So how to improve pieces? As for the knight, so for example, if the knight is on the edge of the board and is not doing much, you can try to bring it. You can try to bring it to the center. For example, if you look at this position, the first one, yes, so at the previous screen, that was a position from the last workshop. This is a new one. And if you look at this screen, what can you say about the knight on d7? It's definitely not a well-placed piece. The knight on d7 requires improvement, but how? If you decide to play knight b6, what does it change? Your knight is still doing almost nothing. Attacking c4, well, they don't have to react on it, but even if they can always have they always have b3, and b3 stops and just parries all your activity there. So that's why it's not a great square. Maybe you cannot improve this knight at all, and if so, you have to consider your other passive piece and how to improve it. So what's your opinion? The knight is not well placed. Can we improve it, or we should forget about the knight for a while and think about other passive piece and improve it first? Okay, so Brian suggests to not move the knight yet. Okay, but do you think you should improve the knight in a different way, even if it's on d7? Or you think that later in the game you will manage your knight? For now, you'd better focus on something else. Okay, what else we see? Knight b8, knight a6, knight b4, suggested by Manish. So, oh no, suggested by Dan. Manish suggests that the bishop on f6 requires improvement. How? Georgios suggests to play e4. Nice, interesting. I like this idea. But e4 means a pawn sacrifice. Because I doubt that after e4, if takes e4, you can play rook e8. I don't think it helps. They can just move the queen, and they are fine with that.
Knight b8, knight a6, knight b4.
Well, yes, Dan suggested this strategy, but let's say they play a3 at the very last scenario, so at the very last moment. So knight b8, they play a helpful move, knight a6, and then they play a3. Also, knight a6 automatically hangs the pawn on a4. That can be a problem too. Okay, so Manish suggests to bring then the bishop away to let the knight to go to f6. Well, makes sense. But I don't see what the bishop does on this diagonal. So if the bishop moves only to improve the knight, again, what do we see? So let's say bishop here, I play just a random move, knight f6. And I play a random move again. What did change? We cannot say that the bishop is active there. And if black wants to play for a win, what black should do? Okay, so okay, fine. Now this is definitely not promising, but let's go back. So you have different suggestions, and let me read them. Okay, Brian wants to push a3 first. A3, b3 doesn't really affect anything. The bishop is not protected. Maybe there can be e4 at some point, but again, how? So e4, they take on f6, or then you can take with your knight, or maybe they just play this. What do they play? Yeah, actually,
Then
a3
I
makes
like
sense.
a3 with rook e8 and
Yeah, okay. So a3. Yes, it does make sense to include a3. What else? The g5 was a suggestion. It hangs f5, so maybe in some time in the long term, the knight on h5. Well, I don't see how it's possible. The knight goes to h5 and to f4, but g3 just stops it. So actually, Georgios was Georgios' suggestion was closest. So e4 right away. And how does it work? Let me explain. So it's actually a pawn sacrifice, but this pawn sacrifice, first of all, was first of all, it was aggressive. Second, it provided the knight with the e5 square. And if, let's say, f takes e4, it's bishop c3. And then this extra pawn doesn't matter. What do you think? If that happened in the game, how should black continue here? 95? Still rook e8, rook e8, queen f3. Then 95
Queen
is the tempo.
f6.
Queen f6. Queen f6 is interesting, but I think they take on f5. So queen f6, they take on f5, you take on c3. No, no. Well, I like rook e8 more. So pawn takes rook e8. Well, this is coming. Oh, well. I don't think it's a problem. Let's just play this. I think this is more a problem. Fine. So if that happened, my suggestion, nobody suggested it, but no, wait, take. So if this happened, f4, and then 95, and look at this bishop. Fine. What if they take on f6 first? This is exactly what they played, which wasn't actually a good strategy. They instead should play this. Then you can take, and then you should fight for the f4 square with g5. Then 95. Even if this, you can still play that and set your knight on e5. But if, let's say, they push f4 themselves, take, if G takes King H8, but before doing King H8, let's first bring the queen, then King H8, and here you definitely have better chances. They cannot attack your king using this diagonal. The bishop is out of the place of action. You have the G file to attack, and Knight F6, Knight G4 is coming. Even if not Knight G4, Knight H5 with a win of a pawn on F4 works well. Okay, if Rook takes, it's Knight F5 right away, and well, they're a pawn up, but White has serious issues in this position. Wait, actually, no, they are not a pawn up because they didn't accept a pawn on e4. So, fine, g3 was better, but the game continued with bishop f6. Should we make this move as an intermediate move? Definitely not. It's a blunder. So, who can tell me why e takes f3 as a blunder?
Queen e6.
Of course, yes. Thanks, David. It's queen e6. Not only because the e pawn controls the space. No, it's queen e6. We're just down the queen. So that's why queen f6. The knight should go to e5. Well, if they play f4 to stop it, we just take on b2 and win a pawn. That's why they took on e4. f4. And the knight comes to e5. This is a key move. And with such a move, we improve our knight, but they cannot do anything with their bishop. So our knight is stronger than bishop and the pawn. Rook f2, knight f5. They tried this, but then we have an attack and knight g4 becomes a deadly threat. In order to stop it, White continued with bishop d1 move. Well, now knight g4 is not playable, but maybe you can suggest a plan? I don't see how White can play for a win. But Black has a lot of opportunities. So what do you think Black should be doing first?
Maybe he can play h5 to do knight g4.
h5 looks interesting, and knight g4 is a threat after that, but what about h3 just? f3. I'm not sure if you're ready for f3, so maybe their best way will be just to sacrifice exchange. Like that. Rook takes. Maybe it's a losing position, actually. No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know if Black is winning. But Black should be better in this position with chances to play for a win, but I'm not sure if it's winning. So I would prefer to not play f3 and prepare it.
g5, g4 is what I like.
g5, g4. Okay, interesting. g5, so queen h5 is a problem.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
But then c4 hangs.
The c4 hangs, but without queens, I don't have you have prospect. So let's say g5, queen h5 takes knight c4. I don't think it's winning anymore. The bishop is too good. So knight e3 bishop e6 check, rook moves, should be fine. Okay, so h5 because of that fails, and that's why Black prepares. Can Black, okay, then asks if Black can use the b file, but how? Oh, there is always b3, so yes, nominally you can play rook b8, but it doesn't allow you to do anything. Okay, Brian wants to push the g pawn. Yes, I saw that. I just wanted to go over this line a little later. But it's still this, and in my opinion, without queens, we do not succeed. So if you can prepare it somehow. Anyway, Black doesn't have to rush because White doesn't have any counterplay. It was rook f7 played. with the idea to double and then to push f3. So that's the plan. Queen c2, g5, because there is no queen straight anymore. Queen goes to c3. Maybe that wasn't the best strategy for them, but now the entire army of black is ready to initiate a decisive blow. How to play in this position? Well, if let's say it's bishop a4, you can do several things. What do you think? Why not f3 directly? It's better to prepare f3 and bring more resources to the attack, because f3 doesn't win the game immediately. g4 is a pawn. Okay, well, I would say knight g4 instead, and let's win exchange. And then let's push g3, g4, g3. This is one option, but maybe this time f3 looks already prepared. How does it work? So if they take, it's a disaster. If they take, then what is better? Take with a rook first. Take with a rook. They take. No. Yes, so take with a rook, and if they take, you can take there, but so here it's a bit unclear. I wanted to play this strategy, but it failed.
I think you could prepare all that with queen h3 here.
With queen h3, yes, because how else they defend? They can only defend with this move. No, maybe not queen h3. So let's go back. If they take, knight yes, of course, this is how we should play. So queen g4 should be played one step earlier, because now rook g3 means rook f1. That's it, and it's a winning position. You take on a4 and there is a quick checkmate. Maybe you just play rook f1, rook f2, and this is mate. So yeah, or you take on f3. Yes, exactly, knight f3 works. You don't need to prepare it if it works immediately. So for some reason I didn't notice that. Well, I did notice the idea of a trade and wanted to deliver a nice checkmate with queen d1, queen f1. That's why I didn't go over this combination. Fine, so this is winning. Not to take. What if they don't take? They can, for example, continue with g3. Then what? Queen h3 or queen g4 or h5? No, if we choose among these two moves, these three moves, these two, I would prefer queen g4. If you play queen h3, rook f3 fails. It's just a blunder. Moreover, in this position, you can even take here if you want. So king takes. This is winning with extra rook. If rook takes, then it's checkmate. So this, and one step left. So this king h4, rook h2. Yeah, I think it's mate. Like that. But even if it wasn't, there is another strategy, rook h1, rook h2. Fine. So why they played bishop d1? I just wanted to show you the attacking potential of the black's position. Of course, such a move wasn't played in the game. They didn't take here. It was too risky, but at least now you see that just moving one defensive piece away from the defense in order to create a counter attack, to create a pass pawn, would almost lead to a loss. So queen h3 works, queen g4 works too, and then you can start advancing the h pawn like that. Fine, so bishop a4 wasn't played. Instead, they played h3. How should we continue then? h4, h5, and g4. That's right. h5 and g4. Bishop e2, g4. Well, in this position, they didn't know what to
F3
do,
is
so
coming.
F3
is coming.
F3 is coming, exactly. So F3 is coming. And that's why they decided to take on F4. Maybe it wasn't the best way to play. The idea of this move is to play G3 after, but it loses. Who can tell me how exactly it loses?
Knight F3 check.
This is what was played in the game. Do you have any other suggestions?
Knight F3 check.
Yeah, Knight F3 was played in the game. Anything else?
You can try Queen H3.
Yeah, if I were playing this position, I would play Queen H3, and after G takes F4, just G3, and it's unstoppable. Yeah, I mean, it's possible to avoid checkmate by playing, let's say, Queen E3. So check this, but then you just promote. The king moves, and you get the second queen, and it's over. This is what I would play, but Black calculated, it was Efim Geller, he calculated Knight F3, so capturing means that, what does it mean? You can take on G3 then. Bishop G2, and this is a winning position. How to play? Rook F3? Yeah, Rook F3 or Queen F2. Okay, so Rook F3. Maybe Queen F2 was better. It doesn't matter. No, I think it's fine. Rook F3 works. And then you take on H3 with checkmating threats. Fine. So that's why King F2 was played. And but finally it's G3, G2, and Queen H2 with G1. So my line with Queen H3, in my opinion, worked better. But this is winning too. So Queen G3, Queen takes, King takes, G1 equals Queen. It's game over. What this game illustrates. So if you look at this original position, you cannot say that black is better, but you can definitely say that this knight is passive. How to improve such a knight? So many wanted to go that way. So knight b6 isn't a good suggestion. But if the knight goes to e5 and at the same time this knight cannot be chased away with anything, then it's a really nice place for the knight. The knight can not only attack on c4 but support the kingside attack that we saw in the game. Moreover, just a simple pawn sacrifice makes this bishop really bad. This is what white missed or underestimated, and because of that they were in trouble. So you can trade bishops, but even if you could somehow play knight e5 and they would take, that would improve your bishop. However, then the enemy bishop won't be blocked. So doing e4 makes sense because it keeps the pawn on e4. e5 became a really good square. So with active move, we provided our knight with a square that he can occupy and at the same time threaten enemy camp.
With an outpost.
It's technically, it's not an outpost because the outpost is a square located in the enemy territory on an open and semi-open file. So e5 still belongs to black. It's the fifth rank. Fine. Let's continue. Okay, what do we have in this position? Our queen is under attack. Our bishop.
Can you go back to the position for a minute?
Okay.
Yeah. So here, in fact, when he played e4, bishop into f6, queen into f6, and better will be like closing the f4, not allowing knight to come here, even at the cost of sacrificing.
We did discuss it. It costs a pawn and it's technically losing
but
position.
It gives the counter, like rook b1, rook b1.
I don't think rook b1 works. Oops, rook b1, yes. So can I take there? I'm sure yes, but I don't want to. Let me do this. The king moves, because queen f2 means bishop takes here. So king h1, and I don't think that you have any single chance here. So
The
maybe,
E pawn is
maybe,
decisive here.
Yeah,
maybe
takes and
this, but
this.
then knight b6, and it's a disaster. Brian, what did you want to say?
I said the E pawn is decisive. It's probably worth a piece at this point.
Yeah,
The
it's
E
decisive. Yeah,
E4
the
pawn.
e4 pawn. But okay, I also can take on e2. Why not?
Now
Take the
F rook,
works too.
F rook comes to b1.
Oh, well, there is always a check. And then once I push a3, you are 2 pawns down. So losing b2 actually guarantees a loss. That's why they decided to capture on e4, even if the bishop then becomes bad, because it's not clear whether in this attack after f4 black can really succeed. So yes,
Okay.
white has a plan, black has a plan, white doesn't have any counter play, but maybe they can just hold the position. This is what they were relying on.
But what was the last move of white before playing this e4?
I don't remember. The last move of white, probably it was bishop c3. Okay, so let's continue. The next example, what do we have? These two hanging. White to move, how white should play. And actually, maybe you can just, let's for a moment forget about our pieces hanging. What do you think is our worst piece in this position?
Our white squared bishop because all our pawns are on the white squares.
That's absolutely right. So Samir says it's the bishop on c2, the light squared one, because it's restricted. Because of our pawns being on the light squares, e4, d5. So the bishop can go that way, but here the bishop is bad too, because there is completely nothing to do. So if this bishop is the worst piece, what can it tell you?
But white has some plans to improve this bishop.
Well, this is what I want you to find. And at the same time,
How
I
how
want you
how I
to...
can do that is probably first saving the queen,
Uh-huh.
then
F.
moving bishop to h4, and then rook c1 and placing my bishop to c6.
Ah, bishop a4.
I don't want to play queen d3 here, so I'm gonna play something else.
Okay,
No, I'm
yeah,
not
think
saying
about...
playing queen d3. I'm
Oh,
saying
with
first
queen
saving the
e3?
queen because you have to save the queen
You have to save the bishop at the same time. So which move?
at the same time because both are under attack. So saving the queen, saving bishop, then playing bishop h4, rook c1, and then finally exchanging the bishop at c6.
Yeah, but this bishop isn't a good bishop. So you exchange your
But
bad
still,
bishop for the enemy
I
bad
will
bishop.
improve my piece and then my rook will be active on c5.
You fight for the outpost, so
Yes.
that makes sense. But they can drive your rook away with this move.
But then
With
my
that,
knight will become more aggressive at f5. f5.
your knight becomes aggressive on f5 anyway.
And all black pieces will be very passive then.
Okay, they are passive. So I think
I'll play knight f5 and sacrifice the bishop.
knight f5 sacrifice the bishop, and after that.
I'm not sure yet.
Okay,
Sorry.
yeah, let's decide first before sacrificing. Okay, Peter suggests queen b3 because the queen has more mobility at b3 versus d3. Okay, maybe. So the key idea here is to improve this bishop. And once you find how, the next move, or where to move the queen and what to do then, can be very easy to find. So what usually I ask my students to do when they struggle with piece improvement when they don't know. Just take this piece from the board and imagine that you could put it almost anywhere on the board. If so, where would you like to put your bishop?
Or one plan can be bishop b3, sorry, queen b3, then bishop d3, and queen coming to b6, rook b1, and finally attacking the a pawn with my
Okay.
bishop, queen, and all my pieces in action.
Okay, so queen b3, bishop d3, and the attack of a6
Yes.
and b7. Yes, it makes sense. What
Yeah.
other suggestions? So queen c3 was suggested by Brian, but I don't see the point. I also think that queen c3
Yeah.
can
It
become a
loses a piece.
problem.
It
No, I
loses a
don't think
piece.
it loses a piece. It's there is a way to save it, but also you give up the f3 control.
Yeah. Yes.
So maybe white is still better, but not much.
And after knight f4, you have indirect attack also. Rook into c3, rook c3, knight e2 check, and then finally c3 for king.
Uh, okay. Fine. Let's go back. So queen c3 doesn't look like a good move. Queen d3, rook c1. Okay, queen d3, rook a c1. The bishop goes that way, but it's easy to save this pawn. Also, you shouldn't forget that there is an attack. So they are about to play knight f4, and if you take pawn takes, the knight...
Biggest problem for black will be the bishop on b7 also. Once your queen moves to b3, then you have the rook b1 also, and he'll be tied up with this bishop to save.
Yeah, there is
All
something
the
logical
pieces
in
for
what... Yeah,
all the
continue.
pieces for black are all super bad.
Well, not these ones. These
That's what
ones
I
are good.
do.
And the queen can capture on h3 in a...
I think I have seen this position in one of the books. I don't know, some very good writer. Maybe this position was there. I think
Maybe.
somehow I can recollect. I don't remember
Uh,
the name, but I can recollect this was one of the training positions in one of the
no,
very good writer's book.
there is no need. You can search for this game on any website. So it was
Okay.
Leonid Stein playing against Lubomir Kovalik. So you can search for this game and you can find the solution. But it's better to analyze such games with coach and discuss them. I mean, with a coach or another strong player.
No, I'm just telling you that somewhere I have seen this position. That
Why
was the
not?
only point.
Okay, so actually Manish is the one who is closer to the solution. But let's do this exercise once again. So take this bishop from the board and put it to
On
the
G.
square that g4, Samir.
Yes.
Okay, so Samir, if it's g4, how do you transfer your bishop there? And remember that
From D
today... Huh?
from D1 to G4.
Okay, so fine. Now, please remember that the topic is the art of active move. So how can you transfer your bishop to g4 by making active moves?
You can maybe do queen b3 and then rook b1, and then you can put your bishop to d1 and then safely to g4.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's right, but not b1, rook c1 was played because it's a discovered attack too. So both lines are playable. So yes, and because of that, it was queen b3. Queen b3. They played knight f4. So ready to sacrifice something. And it's this. Rook dc1. I like rook b1 too, but if you take there, you hang your bishop. So that's why rook b1 is not a tempo move. Rook dc1 is not a tempo move yet, but after this, you win a tempo with a discovered attack. There is no sacrifice. So knight h3, it's too early to play such a move. Even if the queen goes there, We can defend the position with bishop d1. I even think that this may work. Yeah, bishop d1 is fine. We don't, yeah, let's not be too greedy. So let's play this move. And then, no, this works. I just don't see how to
D3.
attack.
Bishop D3 to F1.
Yes, but then it's rook f2. And you, oh, no, it's fine. King f1, f3 works. Yeah, fine. Are they gonna take on d2? But no, queen f4. No, I prefer to avoid it. I understand it's winning, but I don't want to calculate these checks. Actually, queen f4, king g2, there is nothing wrong with it. Okay, yes, maybe. So there is no sacrifice. Rook g6 was played. Now bishop d1 was played with a temper. And again, knight h3 this time doesn't work. Why? Just king h2. The queen is still hanging. Once the queen moves, then you take. So they had to move the queen, and the bishop comes to g4. Well, what happened if they move the queen somewhere else? For example, to a8 or b8? Who can tell me? Let's say queen e8.
A rook B1.
And such a move like rook b8 leads to a loss. The bishop cannot move. If bishop c8, well, it's a completely losing position. I think it's still possible to continue with rook c7 or queen b6 first. It's winning. Fine. So queen d7 was played and bishop g4 was played with a temper. The queen must protect on b7. So that's why queen is 7. But then it falls under knight f5, and now the queen has to leave her position, and then the bishop is captured. But if you capture the bishop right away, what's gonna happen?
Knight h3.
How does it work? Knight h3, bishop h3.
Queen d2.
So you win a pawn and lose a knight.
Oh.
Yeah, so instead it's better to play knight e2. So knight e2, king f1, queen takes d2, but it still doesn't look promising. It's completely winning, but at least it was complicated. Knight e2, king f1, maybe. Oh, still losing actually. But white played better. White took on f4 first, and then they took on b7, and this is where black resigned. So they could try this move, but just queen f7 works, or rook c7, and after h5 threatening with a mate, with queen g2. Knight g3 first. Queen d4 attacking the rook, rook moves with a tempo, and then it's knight to bishop h5. That's it. This is how the game was decided. But it's not clear that...
Can you go to the last image?
Last position?
Here.
Uh-huh.
Oh, nothing now. I thought rook g4, but the queen is hanging.
Yeah, the queen is hanging. So if you go back, so in this position, it's not clear that white has already a significant advantage and that white wins the game in 6 moves. But once you realize strategically what's your worst piece and how this worst piece should be improved, you come up with a plan which provides you a significant advantage that later you can exploit. So here, the bishop, well, it seems that it's almost impossible to transfer the bishop to g2, or at least it takes many tempi. No, that's completely fine. You instead win tempi with bishop d1 move, with rook c1, with rook a b1, and force your opponent to defend this bishop on b7, which is also the object of the attack.
If he tries to move the queen away from the discovery, you just play rook b1 and attack it, the bishop.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, fine, let's continue. Or the next example was the game played a while ago between Sergei Shipov and Nigel Short. So you probably know that Sergei Shipov was disqualified because he's a Russian commentator. Now he works as a Russian commentator. He has a huge YouTube channel, but he officially supports the war, so that's why FIDE disqualified him. He no longer can participate in the tournaments, similar like Sergei Karakin, but Shipov doesn't play. He only comments. So, but that time he was one of the maybe top 10 players. I don't maybe top 20. And Nigel Short was number 2. So let's take a look at this position and decide what is the white's advantage, first of all.
They're up a pawn.
Well, white is up a pawn, but these pawns are doubled. What else?
The bishop pair, maybe.
The bishop pair, exactly.
Pair. Bishop pair.
Bishop pair in the open position can provide such advantage as one extra pawn.
And all the dark pawns are on the dark squares of our dark square bishop.
Right. I'm not sure if we can exploit it, but yes, it can be an additional factor. So extra pawn and a bishop pair, at least this. The d file. What does the d file, what kind of advantage the control over the d file provides us with?
Maybe it can help us like in cutting out the king.
So the king is cut off. That's right. Okay, what do you think? Which of our pieces is the worst, and how can we improve it?
I think bishop on d2.
The bishop on d2. Right. So not the
D3.
bishop on d3.
D3.
No, but
d3,
that's
but
doing a good job, bishop on d3. I think bishop on d2 is not doing anything.
that's a good point. So the bishop on d3 is also not a well-placed bishop, but at least he's doing a certain job. He's protecting the pawn on a4. So if not this bishop, then we would lose it, or we would stay under a pin. So that's why this bishop is okay, and the rook should stay there for a while on the 4th rank, I mean. But this bishop requires improvement. Also, what move you expect black to play?
And see, I think of playing bishop e1, transferring to g3.
So anyway, the next move of black is knight d6, which is a extra attack on e4. And that's why bishop e1 was required anyway. So, and once the bishop goes to that diagonal, he becomes extremely dangerous.
Exactly.
Knight d6 because nothing else can be played. Because if then bishop g3, knight d6 is forced, and it's a disaster. At least you can trade on d6 many times and just win this endgame with extra pawn, but you don't have to.
What about bishop b4 with bishop f8? Is that not good?
I think it works, but then knight d6 and what? Do you think you should take? Because they're gonna take first if you ignore it. If you play with bishop g3, then at least the knight is pinned. And they cannot unpin it, so even if they continue moving the king like it happened in the game, they still are pinned. Now, actually, why did they play king d7? So couldn't they find a better way?
Even king d7 is bad because bishop f4, forcing rook to move and then capturing the knight.
Not bishop f4, but bishop c4. Yes, that's right. Bishop c4, and this is pinned. We force the rook to move, and if the rook moves, the knight is hanging. So that's why they wanted to get rid of the pin as quick as possible.
Yes.
But if they played a random move, that would happen anyway.
Yes.
So there was no defense. So Nigel Short played king d7, bishop c4, and now what? If the rook moves, it's rook d6 and the game is over. What do you think here Nigel Short played in order to try to save the game? He didn't save it, and he didn't have even a chance, but he at least everybody should try it. What did he do?
Sacking the rook on e4.
The rook
No,
e4, rook d6.
maybe rook to e5.
Yeah, no, rook e5 is better because rook e4 it's extra piece and then what?
No, rook. I said rook e5.
Yes, I know, I know. So rook
Sorry.
e4 doesn't work. Rook e5 works. Rook e5 and at least, well, it's absolutely losing. They are down exchange, but at least it's something. So rook d2, the knight is pinned. The game continued with bishop f4. So now white understands they have extra exchange. There are a lot of moves for white, and white is always better. But what is the simplest way to realize the white's advantage?
I think bishop d5.
So everyone agrees it's bishop d5. Why so? Well, the enemy bishop on e4 is active and it attacks the pawn on g2. And when we have extra material, we should trade pieces. So it's bishop d5. But bishop d5 required calculation that Shipov successfully did in this position. So because after bishop takes, rook takes, king e6, the rook has to move. But then they win the pawn on b5. So let's make it. So Shipov calculated all that stuff, but what do you think? Well, e4 doesn't look like a good move.
D3, knight B5, rook D, B3.
Right, so you have to retreat to d3 or d2 to play this or that.
What about
It's
D1? Oh no, because then there's knight C3 fork.
Yes, that's right. So you shouldn't fork. The best way is rook d3 because after knight b5, rook b3, there is no even a check. If your rook was on b2, there would be a check, but king successfully moves and you can still win there. No, they would play knight a4, you play rook b4, it's winning. Fine. So
What if it was a bishop? What if the knight was a bishop? Say it wasn't a check though. Say it wasn't a check. Would it still be winning?
yeah, of course. I'll show you why it's winning. So e4 was played. Why e4? Otherwise the king comes. Fine. E4, g4, g6. So, and this is where he resigned. Why? What is the winning plan? The black king is tied down. He can make
King
only this move.
F2, King G3, King F4, and like advance your pawn.
Well, they can stop your king f4 with g5. So that's why
I
this is
think
not the...
if the king gets active, the king and pawn endgame might be winning. If the white king gets active, so he can sack the rook for the knight.
Yes. Do you suggest to trade the rook for the knight right away?
No, but I feel this is one of the things which I do in my games where if I get a knight versus rook, like I sack my rook at the perfect time, like where I'll have a certain advantage, like opposition or any such. So I thought that might apply here.
Okay, so yes, that's right. This is because this is why the game is completely won and doesn't require calculation. The king goes to d4 and the sacrifice follows, after which you pass the game to the endgame with extra pawn. Let me show you.
After sacrificing rook, you have the advantage of a passed pawn after capturing the e pawn, and then you can
Yes,
easily win this game.
yes, but even if
But
it's
at the
not,
right moment only.
even if it's not a pass pawn, it's extra pawn, and or a pawn in game with extra pawn is almost always winning. So this king c3 and how to play in order to stop this king's activity, because the king can come there too. King d5 should be played. If let's say it's something like that, then already rook d6 can be played, and this pawn is won. If let's say it's king d5, it's rook d6 anyway, and the pawn is lost on e4, and this is an easy win. So the king comes, we don't need to advance. Let's take these pawns and promote one of the g pawns. Well, you can of course calculate, maybe at some point you may advance because, well, let's say king f8, how to play in this position. E7
The king for
equals,
G6.
yeah, king e6, yeah, king e6, then they must move a pawn. We take it, they take it, And now the king must move. So you can calculate and make sure you're winning. Or if you don't want or you're low on time, just take the pawns and promote one of these two. Okay, fine. So here it was clear that this bishop does something and the bishop on d2 not. And the bishop on d2 can be improved to this diagonal, which creates serious problems to the black king's position, as well as pins the knight.
Can you make it go to the point where you had won the knight, but he sacked the bishop? Here,
Okay, here
where he sacked the knight a little bit
later.
before.
Before.
Well, here.
Okay.
Why didn't he do something like king b c8?
There are two attackers on the knight already, so that's why the king has to stay on these two squares to keep protecting it. Okay, so in that last scenario, there can be, okay, so let me answer this question. E7, this, h5, you play g takes h5, if they push, we promote with checkmate. If they take, we play king f6, the king escapes. So king f7 and you win. So if you calculate it properly, it's winning anyway. Fine. Yes, let's continue with our last example. But before we proceed, let me remind you that our workshops are free. However, if you enjoy this content, you can send a donation. Okay, so you can use PayPal to send a donation, for example, through this link. Let me type it here and explain how it works. So it works easy. You just go through the link, click this button. There is a pop-up window. You enter the amount you want to donate. Then the PayPal button appears. You click on it, enter your PayPal account, and the amount that you want to donate will be automatically delivered to my PayPal account. So I appreciate it a lot, and it helps me to prepare for the workshops better. The second way to donate is using Wise. Just go through this link if you have a Wise account already registered. It would be great if you can share about this workshop with your friends, chess players. So more students at the workshop are likely to make this event more attractive and more exciting. We can even organize tournaments, maybe, if we, for example, have like 30 people or so. Let's continue with our last example.
By the way, just wanted to tell that, this is my first session of yours, by the way, but I've seen a lot of your Chessable courses, like I do follow them a lot, and have even brought some, like the spicy Italian, and the other one was the visualization one, I guess. And recently I bought another one, which is the tactical vision one. I'm looking forward to do that, like love your courses, like, yeah.
Okay, that's great.
That's
So
amazing.
if possible, guys, if you purchase and pass my courses, can you please leave reviews? Because
Sure, yeah.
so good
I did,
reviews always help to promote the course.
Yes, that's true. I'll do that for sure.
Thank you. Okay, let's continue. It's white to move. So, and again, task number 1, let's find the worst piece and transfer it to the best square. I'm sure detecting the worst piece isn't a problem, but where to place it and how to reach such a position.
I feel the knight could be great on f6 maybe, but figuring out how we can get over there.
So the knight on f6. Okay, so when I do so, and when I decide whether, well, the knight is obviously the worst piece because it is not doing anything there. So yes, it does stop c5, but I don't think they're gonna play c5. So the knight is not doing much.
Oh, c5.
Okay. So what can I say? Can it be f6? Yes, but how do I reach f6? Through e4, g4, d5, d7, h5. It seems that I cannot really reach f6. Only in case if I somehow capture the pawn on h5. But if I capture the pawn on h5, the position becomes winning because white will be a pawn up. So just capturing the h5 pawn is enough.
But
Samir,
can I improve my knight to e5?
e5.
Yeah,
Well,
or
I'm going
g3
to
double attack.
Yes.
ask that,
So
yeah.
yes,
But we
knight
can
b2,
do it via
d3,
c5
e5.
also.
You can do it through c5. Okay,
c5,
yes,
d4.
knight c5, d4. Yes, you can do so. But is your knight working really well on e5? Yes, it attacks many squares into the enemy territory. But okay, let's say you reached the knight on e5. What's then?
But then I can break do the break on g6 with pawn g6, giving check,
Okay,
and then
but
taking pawn and making my g file free for my rooks.
the g file free for the rooks, but that is a pawn sacrifice when the bishop is on e8, so it only works when they move it.
No, but it will not be a pawn sacrifice, no, because I have, okay, yes.
Well, if you double the rooks first, then it works.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see. Brian, you said e4. Did you mean e4 with a pawn, or did you want to transfer the knight there?
I can probably transfer the knight to e4.
But it's attacked twice. How is it possible?
Yeah, with the pawn push. But my
Ah,
other
the
idea
pawn
was
push
9.
first.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
My other idea was the knight would do well on g3 since there's a double attack there.
So, but yeah, so actually these two squares, these are our targets. As for the g3, I think king g6 cements the position. So, but if you do it through f4, they cannot defend h5. So that's why here, this approach, when you just try to visualize how you take this knight from the board and put it anywhere you want. You can even close your eyes and then open it. Imagine, okay, I want my knight to be there to capture the pawn on h5 and maybe then to enter f6 or maybe to prepare g6. So the knight is definitely well placed on f4. What else I can...
And I think when you play knight c3 to get to f4, they can try to stop it with like king g7 and f6, but you can play g6. If the bishop takes, you play knight f4.
Well, if king g6 is played, then knight f4 will be a check. So maybe you just let him play
King g7, g7.
king g7. Okay, I don't think he
But
has time
I
for it.
can transfer my knight to e5 and f4 both from d3.
Yeah, but it requires you to spend more tempi. So let's say
Knight b. Say first move
d4.
should be d4. Yeah.
d4. Okay, so they play a random move. What else they can play? b6, no.
I think best counter attack for
e5.
them will be bishop d7. Bishop d7, so hence doubling the rook on e5.
I want to attack this pawn.
Because b4 anyway provokes our idea because we want to go to either c5 or b2.
Okay, let's say this is better, right? So okay, a4. Maybe b4 works.
Okay, knight d3.
So king g7.
Now I can move to knight f4.
Oh, knight f4 is winning move, of course. But if you want to move knight f4, isn't it easier to play that way? It's just 1, 2, 3 tempi. And your strategy requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and you have to push the pawn.
Yeah.
And you also have to stop a counterplay. If you can deliver the knight to f4 faster, let's do it faster.
Okay.
Okay,
But
so
what about e4 though? I'm curious.
e4, I just don't want to open the bishop. Because any pawn trade in the center makes the bishop more active. So let's say take, then what? It doesn't seem to work. So for now, it's a pawn
Yeah, the
sacrifice. So
bishop
they
is just getting active.
yeah, the bishop, yeah, through d7, even f6 is not required. The bishop is
And
more
bishop
active.
d7 and then transferring to g4 also.
Also, maybe even here to stop g6. Yeah, to g4 maybe. Okay, so knight c3. Well, knight b6, no. Why? Because where else he goes? Knight c8, but then it's almost trapped. Knight c5, there is not much to do, and it can be chased away back to a4. Knight c3, bishop d7, knight e2, and there is no strategy that helps to save the pawn. So they just don't have time. If only we provide them with a few moves, they would do that. Oh,
No,
king
but
g7
what about rook e8?
like that?
Rook
Rook
e8.
e8.
Rook e8.
Yeah, what about rook e8? Okay, who can tell me what should we do with it?
You can play e4, take once and push.
But they will push too. So, and if, well, e4, f takes.
No, but still I can think of a sacrifice on e6. No? E3, sorry.
No, I would
Still
play
try.
d takes and then I would push the pawn.
Then your knight doesn't go to, like, take this.
I
Then your
think so.
knight,
We can ignore pawn on e6 and can go with the same idea, knight f4.
Yeah,
okay.
we can
So,
sacrifice the pawn at e3.
Because my idea was knight d4 here to push
knight d4.
f5 and f6,
But even if,
or
let's
even
say,
f5
okay,
followed by g6.
okay. So let's say you did it. So rook a5. So why is it good? g6 is good, yes, but f6 not.
Yeah, but now we have knight f4 again
But
after
you
f6.
hang the pawn. So
No, he could play f6 or g6 with a check. Yeah, so
yeah, but when you play f5, you hang the pawn, so you have to do this, you
wait,
do that, but that always allows him to do a counterplay with the e-pawn.
true.
So you'd better avoid it. And yeah, there was a suggestion, I don't remember who was, Kant was telling it, to sacrifice the pawn. So knight f4 right away, and after rook e3, it can be knight h5 with knight f6 threat.
Yes.
So rook e2 is not a big problem.
Or
It's
king
still winning.
king f1.
King f1. Yeah, I think king g3, but king f1 seems to be okay too.
But I want to keep the pressure on the rook.
Yeah, actually, good point. This, and this rook has to defend both the knight and the rook on e2.
And if you move the king, it's still a fork.
No, he's losing a piece because even if he supports the rook,
Yeah,
you can give a check and then takes the bishop.
yeah, that's right. So that's why rook a3 doesn't work. It's a piece sacrifice then. So knight f4 still works. In the game, it was a4 with a counter attack on the a file, and white decides to defend it. c5, knight f4. The pawn is lost. Bishop a6, supporting d5. Well, knight h5, of course. This move. What next? There is a nice check with knight f6, but
Knight f4 back.
knight f4 back. That's right. And what's the plan?
Bring it to e5.
Bringing the
I
knight
think
to e5.
h5 and g6.
Yeah, h5
This
should
kind of
be the
idea.
plan. Not sure about g6 immediately, but g6 is definitely a plan and can be played at a later moment, at a better moment. But
But
knight
h5.
f6 makes no sense. Knight f6, there is nothing to do. So king g7, and what you can do is just to regroup the knight back. Okay, knight f4. They pushed b4. We played h5. They go that way, so threatening to take the pawn and take advantage of the pin, or if we take, then the pawn on a2 is lost. So what do you think we should do?
Let's see.
I think G6 check.
Okay, g6, king h6, I think.
Oh, I think I can free my rook. Na? There is no harm in terms of giving pawn also. Rook c1.
Yeah, but you don't have g6. You can play rook c1 right away and keep g6
Yeah,
for
I'm saying rook
moment.
c1. Ah, okay. Okay. That's right.
Yeah, so g6 doesn't work so well. It works if f takes, but if not, then it's too early. So rook ac1 just, yes, rook ac1 attacking here. And if they take on b3, who cares? So this is where they used their last moment, last chance. They played d4. Still g6, king h6, and I don't see a continuation. You can take on c5, it works. But what is the simplest way to win?
Knight takes e6 and make the two pass pawns.
Right. So
So
knight takes
simply
e6.
knight takes e6 and then taking the c pawn. And
Yeah,
c
so
pawn also
g6,
can take.
h6 is coming. So take on
Yes.
c5 first. They deliver a check. King
Okay.
moves there. And it seems that we lose a pawn, but who
e5
cares?
or e5.
Yeah, well, there are two rooks that can attack. So rook e1 first, because this rook is more active and can deliver checks on the 7th rank. But after e2, we can just play rook e5 and win it, and then win this. And then two passed pawns, two connected passed pawns decide the game. That's it. So in such positions, when you don't know what to do, at least you can, well, you can do two things. This is what I always say. You can try to think about your opponent's plan, and if you consider it to be dangerous for your position, you can disrupt it. And if you don't see any dangerous plan from your opponent, think about your worst piece and imagine that you can put it to any square you want, and if so, which square it would be. And then you should realize whether it's technically possible to reach such a position or not. If it's not possible, look for the second best square and try to bring your piece to that square. If you see that it's also impossible to reach such a square, think about your second worst piece and try to improve it. And of course, if you spend fewer tempi on improvement, it's better. Or if you gain tempi on during this improvement, like it, for example, happened at our previous example between the game between Leonid Stein and Lubomir Kovalik, when the bishop moved to g4 with tempi. Okay, fine. So I think we are done with our workshop. Any questions? Samir, did you want to ask anything?
No.
No, fine. Anybody else? Okay, fine. So there should be a workshop next Sunday. At least I hope so.
Do you know what the topic is?
The topic is, yes, I know, but I forgot. Let me.
Can you search it real quick?
If yes, let me find. I gonna check my list. So just give me a sec. I'll let you know. Yes, I can tell you the list of topics. that our future webinars will be devoted to. Not this. Okay, I have it. No, it's not here. Oh, how to attack. Okay, so the next is how to attack without sacrificing blindly.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, then the other one, the workshop in 2 weeks or so, will be converting won positions, so from advantage to victory. Then thinking like a strong player. Then strong squares, and the moment to strike. So okay, that's enough. So the next one is about how to attack without sacrificing blindly. I think it's a very important topic for those especially who who enjoy sacrifices. Oh, Samir, did you want to ask anything?
Nothing.
Okay, fine. So what else? So please recommend my workshop to your friends, but also if you are interested in other courses that are not published on Chessable, for example, you can do it on my own website, tricksofchess.com. So
Victor, did you select a topic for the next group lessons?
not yet. So I'm still ready for your suggestions. The next group lesson starts closer to the end of February. I will announce it, but I'm going to do it from Spain. Okay, fine. So let's finish for today and see everyone next Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye.